Okay, and welcome to Land Rover ICU, where Smoky is currently in the OR with some very severe symptoms. Walter started to notice that the water from the water reservoir was losing volume very, very quickly. After checking the oil level had risen significantly, which suggested that water was entering into the engine. This generally happens a couple of ways, usually either through the gaskets or with something happening with the welch plugs. But I will let the man of many talents, our mechanical engineer and generous farm owner, Walter, explain more.
Remove your spare wheel from the bonnet, loosen the stay, open the bonnet completely, and use a rope to tighten it because you don't want this on your head. Then what I did was remove the air filter, the top hose here, the injector pipes, and the rocker cover. And now the rest must continue. So I think we start with injectors and glow plugs, then move to the manifolds, and then loosen the head. Okay, next step, I remove the injectors because you can't get to the head bolts if they are in place. And I'm going to remove the heater plugs, then the intake and exhaust manifold, then the rocker shaft, all the head bolts, and then the head can come off. This is an old vehicle. It's made in England, so we use Imperial tools. Here they are. All the Imperial sockets are here. Those.
Smoky's in the workshop, feeling a little down. Water and the oil, it's causing quite a frown. Walter's got the spanners and he's ready to dive in. Fixing up this landing, let the world.
After removing the injectors, I'm going to remove the glow plugs, or heater plugs as I'm calling, and then I will show you in some later video the modification that I've made on them, because the original ones are basically unavailable, and when they are available, absolute rubbish.
Again.
So let me get a big screwdriver to try and pry the injectors out, but if it doesn't work, I'm going to use a sliding hammer. Sliding hammer. A little hook at the bottom, and if you do like that, it's got a lot of momentum, and it's easier to get something out that way. Yes, here we go. Rust.
Turn the wrench, wipe the grind, working on this classy ride, taking our time. Every bolt, every seal.
Okay, all 4 injectors out. Now heater plugs, glow plugs. Okay, here are the 4 glow plugs. They must come out because if you handle the head, you can damage them. They are a bit tight because they were not removed for some time. There you go. Now this is a modification I talked about. There's another glow plug fitted into the original glow plug's casing. That will be explained at some other time, how it's done. There seems to be some damage on the step where it seats. Could be because of the water. Could be because it was probably knocking or whatever. But this one doesn't look as good as the others. We'll see. Okay, don't forget on the cylinder head there's an oil feed pipe that feeds the head. That must be removed, otherwise you will damage it when you try to take off the head. There we go. Clamp on this bypass hose that comes from the water pump up to the thermostat housing. Okay, next step is to remove intake and exhaust manifold. I'm going to give you some penetrating oil because they can be tight. So loose, so I'm going to take this intake manifold off first. Catch the washer there, if I can. There's another one. Got it. There we go. Intake manifold. The exhaust manifold, one can just push aside like that. Take this dipstick out. That's it. Good. Okay, before I remove the head, I prefer to release the tension on these rockers because the valve springs are pulling upwards, so that it's easier to loosen these without having the rocker shaft bending too much. And I want to remove this temperature sensor unit because that also gets damaged when you handle the head. Then we loosen the head bolts and then the head comes off. Okay, time for a tea break before the final round. Actually a whiskey and coke break. And thank you Samantha for this nice virtual meerkat cup that you gave me.
Bringing Smoky back, that's still tonight. Radiator whispers, something's not quite right. Walker grabs his toolkit and works into the night. Gasket are the welch plugs, the culprit's got a show.
Goodie.
Pressure test is coming, let's give it a go. Turn the wrench, wipe the grind, working on this placid ride, taking our time. Every bolt.
Loosening head bolts, I use a metric 22 hexagon socket. It works perfect. You loosen from the outside inwards, not to distort something.
Every seal, bringing Smoky back, that's still tonight. Engine's seen the years, but the heart's still strong. Water hums a tune as he works along. Old Land Rovers, they tell a tale. Grit and grease and trails they sail.
And remove rocker shaft. There we go. Going to put that away. Okay, now I have to remove push rods. And when you remove them, keep them in the same sequence as they come out, because they call it good engineering practice. The parts that's worn on on a certain place and you don't want to put it in another place where the wear is different. So that's the reason why you keep them in the same sequence. The last part of it, remove all the other head bolts and then we can whip the head off. Does it make sense? It's a bit of an anxiety moment. Another tip, if you have bush babies living here, keep your parts in a place where they can't get to them because they carry it away. It happened a few times. Even car keys got lost. Okay. As you can see, there are 2 studs here. The rest are all bolts, and those are to keep the head in the correct position when you refit it. And I can add, if you loosen your ejector pipes, close the holes up here, because that may enter and ruin your injectors. Okay, I will need some help from a friend to lift it off. I always did it myself, but it's really damaging to your back. So I'll get a friend to come and help me lift it off. I've noticed something here. We checked all the other welch plugs before we removed the rocker shaft, and now that the rocker shaft is removed, water came out of this welch plug, yeah. So that could possibly be the culprit. There on my finger, you can clearly see coolant, antifreeze. So definitely there must be a leak on this welch plug. It might not be the only leak, but we'll find out. Okay, I'm going to put some newspaper here on the table, because we're going to turn the head around so that the oil can all run out. And I don't want it all over your table. My friend has arrived, so we're going to take it off now and put it back there, down there. Okay. It's loose there. It's loose. Get hem bij mij, ja. Hey, have it. I'm gonna turn it around. Okay, the head is removed. Maybe it will start to blow here because it's dark. It's not shiny. It's a bit on the dark side here, not shiny. So it could be that the head gasket was starting to blow here too. This looks better. This does not look that good. This is your push rods go down your tappets. Are in here. No traces of water at the moment here. Let's remove this gasket. Okay, if you look at the bores and the pistons, definitely had no water on that. But usually when you get water on a piston, it's very clean when you open it. Unlike the others, these are all the same. So no water entered into the combustion chamber. Water must have entered through either that welch plug or between, on the gasket between the water gallery and your tappets, the holes for the tappets. These are your water galleries, here, and there. That's where the water runs from the block up to the head. And on some of these holes it's going back, this, there, and there. So that if there are no signs of water on the piston, it means that water didn't enter the combustion chamber. So it must have entered either from one of the water jackets into the tappet holes here, and then run down into the sump. Now we're going to check the head face, see if we can find any evidence here of a leak. If you match this with the block now, this is your water galleries going into the head, and that is where your push rods go through, your push rod tubes. It could also leak there. That's why a pressure test has to be done, to make very sure before you refit it. Otherwise you do everything and do it again. There's evidence here that the head here too, that the head gasket was starting to blow because it's dark, and here it's like shiny. Where it's dark, that's where gas escapes. So I'll put my money on poor quality gasket, because you don't find cars for these cars anymore. You only get from suppliers that are, let me say, fly by nights most of the time. You call no names. Again, no evidence of water entering the combustion chamber, because usually it looks different where water enters. It's cleaner. Otherwise it looks very good on this head. It's a matter of testing it. Push rod tubes, one of the culprits where you can leak. But we're going to check the other side. But before we do that, we're going to check the gasket also. See on the gasket. Yeah, it seems okay on the top. It's quite clean. This is not good. Yeah, it's not that good. Starting to break up here, but I think that is left on the block. This is not a good gasket, to be quite honest. I've turned the head around now, so we're going to have a look at the welch plugs inside the cylinder head, because that is also a culprit. So I'm cleaning them first. I must add that these are the original ones from 1977. When I took off the rocker shaft, there was evidence of some antifreeze inside this welch plug, yeah? And we're going to check it now. It does not seem to have a hole. But the pressure test will reveal if it's losing pressure on one of the welch plugs. they all seem fine. And like I've said, these are all original things from 1977 and still going, which is quite an accomplishment. Doesn't seem to be a problem, but the pressure test will reveal. Unfortunately, that has to be done. The whole thing started with water entering the engine. It was first losing water, and I looked and there was no water leaking from outside where the landing was standing. And then I realized that the oil levels had risen, which means that water was entering the engine. So there were a few culprits. First, you have push-rod tubes inside the head here, which can leak. You have welch plugs inside the head, which can leak. You have a gasket, which can leak. Which at this point in time, if I looked at everything else, like the welch plugs and the push-rod tubes, the whole thing has to be tested. Because that's why pressure test must be done, to make sure that there's no leak on the head itself. And then we know that it must be the gasket, which is the culprit, which means poor quality gasket. So thank you for watching, and we'll continue after the pressure test, and when the gaskets and everything arrives, and then we can fit it all together again.
From the bushveld farm to the workshop floor, Smoky will be ready to explore once more. Turn the wrench, wipe the grind, working on